Hello, everyone. So I'm Mudit Gupta. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer at Polygon. I manage security and smart contracts there. And today I'm going to talk about a very nice, neat topic, theoretical security versus practical security, because it's especially relevant to this space. I've seen in this space a lot of people aim for like the idealistic scenario, but they forget the basics. Like you make a super hard, like super secure, super nice decentralized system, but nobody can use it. Like then what's the point? Like the mnemonic is a good example of that, but I'll come back to all of that later. Let's get started. Some quick context about my slides. So my dog ate my homework, so my slides are very patchy. I just made new ones today, this morning. So they are not perfect, but they're gonna get the job done. So practical security versus theoretical, like this is a good example, like a perfect gate, like someone spent maybe hours building this, although it doesn't look in perfect situation right now, but that's the whole point. Like you can build something perfectly secure at one stage and then forget about the others and people will bypass. So security is all about covering all of your bases. The thing about security is that as a defender, you have to cover every single point. If you leave any hole, someone will get in. As an attacker, it's easier. You just ignore the secure system. You find a way around. You just have to find one way to break in, and that's it. So you have to be like, it's much easier to be an attacker, honestly, than to be a defender. And this is why like I love to be an attacker, but someone has to defend. So here we are. The first thing I'm going to talk about is not your keys, not your coins. Everyone has probably heard this phrase. Everyone keeps bringing this up in crypto. If you don't own your keys, then they are not your coin. Like someone else can take your coins. I'm going to talk about the opposite of this. It's very interesting because the opposite is you lost your keys, you lost your coins. And this is actually practically a bigger problem than not your keys, not your coins problem. So there have been at least a couple $1 billion lost to lost keys already, and I'm sure there are more that we aren't tracking. And there are billions of dollars in wallets of users that are incorrectly secured. Because the thing is, keeping a mnemonic safe is super, super, super hard. It is much harder than keeping a password safe, because you can change a password if you forget it. You can change a password if it gets leaked. And everything, but a mnemonic is just a one-time thing. You have it once, and if you ever make a mistake, if it ever gets leaked, you're done. So keeping a mnemonic or private key safe is a much, much, much harder problem. And in crypto space, us crypto engineers decided to just make this thing and say, oh, it's 100% secure, nobody can know your mnemonic. And we told our grandmas to use mnemonics, and then they have no idea how to use it. So the problem here is a clear example of theoretical versus practical security. Theoretically, a private key is 100% secure. Like if nobody knows your private key, nobody can access your funds. But practically, there are many, 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 many problems. Starting by like, what if like you die for some reason? How can your loved ones access your funds? So that's a tough problem to solve. Then there is key rotation problem. What if for whatever reason your key is compromised? What if we realized there's a bug in Ledger? The bug it hasn't led to an exploit yet. It was a 0-day, let's say, but now you have to move to a different device. That's fine, but you can't like you're stuck. You can't change your mnemonic key. You have to move everything from an old mnemonic to a new mnemonic. And now imagine it's DeFi. You're doing things like vesting. You can't change the vested address. You're gonna get funds on this address for sure in few years. And this key is already compromised. What do? You're just stuck. It was not the best solution to of a mnemonic. And then us geniuses came up with a solution to this, which we call multisigs. So let's just use multisigs, and then we can rotate keys in multisig, software multisigs. That's actually a good solution, again, theoretically. Practically, one, like if someone doesn't know how to secure a mnemonic key, they're not going to know how to use a multisig. If you have used it now, if you have seen the UX now, it just sucks. And the other thing is like half of the apps in this space don't support it either. So we are like in theoretical security, we are running so fast. In practical sense, we are so far behind. So we need to really, really, really catch up there. Moving on. Okay, so another example would be like to not plug in your laptop in unknown ports wherever you go, because that's a nobody really thinks about, but it's actually a very practical attack scenario, especially at like conferences like this, where there are many notorious people around and that have access to these wires. So yeah, avoid plugging your laptop in. I promise this is a laptop I borrowed this morning. It's not mine, so I'm fine. But yeah, that's one thing you should not do. Okay, some more examples. So I've seen a lot of people not install antiviruses on their computers because they're like, oh no, the antivirus can rug me. Yes, that's a very good, very valid theoretical attack vector. You should know about the risk. But practically, the chances of you getting a virus if you go raw dog is much higher. Just always use protection. Just install an antivirus up there. And I promise you, if you're using a trusted company, a trusted brand, then the risk of them getting compromised and wrecking you is lower than you mistakenly clicking a phishing link and going there. This is like, phishing is again something I see very often. People ignore phishing attack vectors completely because they're like, oh, phishing needs me to make a mistake. I'm not gonna make a mistake ever. But bro, you are. Like, tell me what you do. I'll tell you 100 ways I can phish you. You are a VC. I'll just send you a malicious malicious deck. You'll open the deck and then wrecked. You are a software developer. I'll compromise your friend. I'll push malicious code to the repo you work together, and you do git pull, and then you're wrecked. Really, like, doesn't matter how serious you are with security. Even if you are a very serious cryptographer, security researcher, whatever, do you really verify or audit code that your friend is pushing? No. And do you trust your friend to not make mistakes that you're making? If you are, then that's a fault, but you shouldn't. So just be safe. Just install it. Like, it's not going to keep you 100% safe, but it's going to stop 99% of the attacks. So don't fight it. Just you don't need to take the risk. Why take additional risk? Then oracles. This is another interesting topic. People keep blaming like Chainlink is centralized. They have a multisig. They have this. They have that, and so on. But and then like, what's the alternative? Let's use decentralized oracles. Like let's use TVOps. The thing is, like, TVOps are theoretically secure, but practically super insecure. I gave a whole talk about this at DSS last year and this year in Korea. I can speak about this like for half an hour, why they are insecure. But the bottom line, and you can see from the track record, number of times Chainlink multisig has been compromised to push bad Oracle prices so far is 0. And number of times TVOps have been used properly is also 0. The number of times TVOps have been compromised is more than 10. I can just keep counting. And the best of the best are failing at this. It's just a very hard problem. I'm not saying TVOps inherently are insecure. They are theoretically the securest thing. But again, practically, they are one of the weakest links out there. And people don't realize this. Okay, so multisigs, let's get that out of here. So obviously there are two main choices here. Either you get a multisig and you make your contracts upgradable, or you say, oh, I'm the best developer, my contract can never have a bug, it's gonna be a immutable contract since launch. You can choose both paths. Theoretically, a non-upgradable contract is safe because nobody can rug it or whatever. Practically speaking, the chances of you having a bug in there mistakenly is much, much, much higher than a known multisig with known participants, reputable participants trying to rug it just because of one, reputational risk, regulatory risk, legal risks, and everything. So you just have to manage the risks there. If it's a very simple, small contract, then yes, 100%. The multisig risk doesn't make sense. Go with a non-upgradable contract. And even if you're going with an upgradable contract, don't just upgrade it to add useless, small, tiny features, or else you'll get wrecked. Many projects in the past have gotten wrecked because they upgraded the contracts to add a feature which they didn't really need. So yeah, have upgradable or pausable contracts. Be smart about them. You can have time locks and things like that, but that's a good way to stop to prevent getting wrecked, really. Oh, Ledger, I have so much to talk about. Ledger is another French company, so right on topic. But if anyone has been breathing in this space, they probably remember all of the FUD that went around Ledger. Like, Ledger is insecure, stop using Ledger, Ledger added a backdoor and whatnot. But the thing is, like, people again forgot, like, theoretically, yes, like, if they add another API to get your private keys, that can be exploited. But practically, it made zero impact. The reason is Ledger always had that API. It is not something new. You just learned about it now. You didn't knew about it before. If you have seen the if you've seen the architecture, the way Ledger works is the apps can always get access to the key, and that's how the apps do the signing. The secure module doesn't, it can't sign things of the future. Like, if there's a signing scheme or that is created in the future, like, the secure module is not gonna know how to handle it. So the way it was built is it is upgradable. So Ledger can push out upgrades, firmware upgrades to it, and it can theoretically take your keys. But again, it's a theoretical attack vector, and it is applicable to all other wallets. You talk about, and yeah, this is another funny thing. Many people on the space were like, "Oh, Ledger is insecure. Let's move to Grid Plus." It's the same attack vector there. They can upgrade your firmware, they can take your keys, and it's not public source either. Like, so you can't even verify if it's secure right now. So those are all very theoretical scenarios that are most likely not going to happen. There are some more practical scenarios that people don't care about. For example, supply chain compromise. Like, if your hardware vendor is just using a company from China to get all of their hardware, like, what's the guarantee the Chinese government won't add a backdoor at the hardware level? At that point, you can't do anything from the software level. And like, this is something practical because very recently, if you know about multi-chain, like, they just took the multi-chain creator and like, just he just vanished with his keys. Then funds starting moving over. So the founder's sister stepped into white hack kind of, and then the government took the sister, and now nobody knows where they are. So if you think like the Chinese government not being malicious is not a real attack vector, then maybe think about it again. That, in my opinion, is a little more likely than Ledger being malicious. And the thing with Ledger being malicious, it's easier to detect. If it's a software level malice, it's easier to detect than a hardware level malice. So it would be stupid for them to do it something intentionally. And that's the, like, practical side of security. If you go with another hardware vendor, ask them like about their supply chain and so on. Like, they're gonna be 100% secure theoretically, but practical security is a tough choice. At the same time, to be honest, for all practical sense, most of the major hardware wallets like Ledger, Trezor, Grid Plus, they are all perfectly fine. You're fine with any one of those. If you're using your crypto wallets, like, just get a hardware wallet. It's much better than a software wallet like MetaMask. You will be much more secure, and just use them. Doesn't matter which one you get, like, just get one. That's the practical sense. Nobody, practically speaking, is gonna come after your crypto if it's in hardware wallet and you are not compromising your mnemonics. There are much easier ways to attack your crypto. And as I said, like, for an attacker, they just need to find one hole. If I'm an attacker, I would not attack Ledger, the like, big gate of security, when I can just walk around and fish you, and things like that. So in practical sense, any hardware wallet works. Don't look at the FUD that like talks about Ledger and so on. One thing, although, I'll add here is the new feature from Ledger about backup. That's although stupid. Like, I won't recommend anyone to really use that. That is actual risk of that. If you opt into that feature, then it sends your key to other centralized servers that can be compromised. So unless you don't know at all how to manage your key, which, if you're using a hardware wallet, you should. If you don't know how to manage your keys, don't use a hardware wallet. Just use Coinbase. Just use a custodial solution. Only get to hardware wallets when you have learned a little bit of key management, and you have done that. Then don't opt for that kind of backup services. Those are much riskier practically. And humans are obviously the weakest link in security, because human behavior is something you can't secure. You can't add test cases and test continuously if this human is compromised or not. Like, there are so many attack vectors here that it's just super, 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 super hard to make sure humans are safe. Phishing is one of the biggest ones that I just talked about. You tell me like any person, anything they do, and I'll tell you 100 attack vectors they can be compromised for. Nobody, if anyone thinks they can't be phished, then they are just wrong. But at the same time, we should at least make people aware of the basic phishing scenarios so they don't fall for the basic things. And as I said, security is all about like layers. So phishing is just one of those layers. You have to be secure on all fronts. If you are using a ledger, you have one gate covered. If you are aware about phishing, you have a second gate covered. Then the attacker would, instead of trying advanced techniques to phish you, they'll try to find a third vector which might be more vulnerable. So you just have to get all of these levels up as possible. And also it depends on your risk profile. If you are just a random person playing with NFTs, $1,000 maybe in your wallet, then the phishing attacks that are going to be targeted towards you are going to be mass phishing attacks, nothing very targeted, because it's not, the risk reward ratio doesn't make sense for the attacker. But if you are a crypto founder, let's say you are you are managing a treasury, you are on bunch of multisigs, then you 100% need to be more secure, more vigilant, because then there can be targeted attack vectors on you. And we have seen in this space, like great crypto founders have been wrecked by phishing, and long cons as well. Like we have seen attack vectors where someone befriended a crypto founder, they talked to them for months and months, and then finally executed the attack once they had their confidence. So you make a new friend at this conference, it's 100% possible they might rug you 2 months down the line. So you just have to be very conscious about that fact. And the other thing about humans, phishing and everything is that our attackers are experts at this. So the people we are really fight, there are two types of attackers in this space. One are like the seasoned professional people doing it, that may be state sponsored or not. And the other is just college kids doing some scripting. The college kids that do some scripting usually go for smart contract attacks, and usually they are caught. So you have seen like funds being returned from bunch of protocols because the kid didn't do proper OPSEC. So those are relatively easy to catch. But then you have professionals doing it, and there it's much harder to do anything. You have DPRK like attacking us, and they are experts at phishing. They're not gonna do basic attacks on you. If they are going for you, they'll just go, and we have to fight against them. So we have to make sure like our phishing awareness training is up and ready, because it's gonna be much harder to stop those guys than it is to stop some kiddo. Like you just, even if you write a complex smart contract, then it's safer than a compromise scheme. So in general, like if there is a bug in a smart contract and there is a bug in your key management practices, it is 100% more likely that the key vector will be compromised, because just there are more people targeting that attack than people that are targeting the smart contract. It doesn't mean you don't need secure smart contracts, but it just like I want to put attention on things that you need to secure. Don't forget about the traditional security. So another good example of this would be like people make 100% secure contracts deployed on the chain. They can't be upgraded and so on. And then use a $1 domain registrar to register their domain and serve the contracts UI through there. The contracts are immutable, unhackable, nothing happens to them. But then their DNS gets hijacked and boom, they're gone. It has happened to many reputable projects like Curve Finance that comes to mind. They have like one of the best security hygiene and risk management practices. But guess what? They were using another shitty registrar because they wanted privacy, and that bit them in the ass. So avoid all of these cheap registrars. I personally use Cloudflare a lot, and Cloudflare has a toggle that allows you to revoke access from Cloudflare support to your domains. So usually all of these registrars have support in case you lost access, you lost password or something, that they can restore your access, but they can also rug you. So Cloudflare has a neat function which allows you to click that button, and then nobody from Cloudflare support can help you. It becomes like your login access, your domain. If you can log in, you can manage. If you lost access, you'll lose it. So if you know how to do it, it 100% makes sense to do it. Another attack vector people talk about, like Infura can rug. Infura is by consensus. You're using MetaMask to do it. Like if they wanted to rug you, they'll probably do it at the wallet level. They'll show you what you are signing. They'll show you something innocent you are signing and then make you sign something else. So all of these attack vectors are genuine. But the thing is, like, Infura, let's talk about a malicious RPC. A malicious RPC can't really create malicious transactions on behalf of you. It can only give you false data, or it can give you, or it can censor you. If it's censoring you, you will obviously know your transactions are not going through. You will change the RPC provider. If it's giving you false data, you will likely still know, and you won't act on that false data. Yes. So that's one thing. Like Infura most likely is not gonna rug you. Be aware of the wallets you use. They are more likely to have bugs. Some other attack vectors, like don't go to cartel cities, everyone, like that's a practical attack vector. If all of the multisigs are there at one conference, may not be good. Don't invest in Shiba, Inu, Minu, Mooncoin, even if you're using Ledger. Then MPC, obviously, is the last thing I want to touch on. Most of the MPC in this space are basically like this. So make sure that if you trust an MPC, you know what you're doing. It can be hard. A good example of this would be like recent multi-chain hack, where the founder had access to all of the keys, and then the founder's sister had access to all of the keys, and then the Chinese government has access to all of the keys, and now your funds are gone. So yeah, like if you're trusting an MPC-based solution, think about it again. Do proper risk management. And the final thing I'll add is like, yeah, not just multi-chain, Harmony Ronin. This was, I guess, perfect example for Harmony. It was a 2x3 multisig, and everyone was just the same. But yeah, just be secure. And the final thing is like manage your risk. Nothing is 100% secure. You have to manage your risks accordingly, according to your risk appetite and what you're doing. There are gonna be some theoretical attack vectors you're gonna have to accept. There are gonna be some practical attack vectors you're gonna have to accept. There are gonna be some attack vectors you can mitigate, so you will mitigate. But yeah, like don't spend like 100 hours to secure a $1 toffee or something. You have to like balance everything properly. And at the end, merci beaucoup. And I tried to translate questions in French, but apparently it's also a question. So I added a day just in front, like to make it French. And I'll open it up to questions now, anyone.
Hello, great talk. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on the state of like auditing generally, like individual auditors, all the competition audits, the auditing firms, what your thoughts there are versus like on the value they provide and what the optimal process is there, and then also what Polygon does.
Yeah, for sure. So auditing is super, super, super important. You should definitely get as many people as you can to get to look at your code, because you can obviously, it doesn't matter how smart you are always going to make silly mistakes. Like things you know, like it's not that I don't know that this is going to lead to an exploit. It's just that I will miss it. I will assume it's doing something else if I'm writing the code. And for those mistakes, it's good to have more people look at your code. And as far as options are compared, so audit contests, I look them as like a mix between bug bounty and audit engagements, traditional audit engagements. I think they have their space, and you should definitely go for them, but you should additionally get traditional audits, because traditional audits give you some like peace of mind, at least, that people are actually looking at your code. Audit contests are can be unreliable in the sense, like if there is a bigger audit contest going on at the same time, then people are maybe pay attention to that and not pay attention to yours. So it's risky, but it's a good addition. So my recommendation would be to do both. And at Polygon, we have internal audits, we do external audits, we have continuous engagements with auditors. We don't do just like at the end, hey, is it secure? We work with them over the time and we discuss the architecture. Hey, should we do it this way? Should we do it that way? And then from start, we have security at mind. Then we are looking at audit contests. That would be like we might have one coming up on Code Arena very soon. That's going to be fun, and so on.
Hi. Quick question. So do you think that the 2FA, using 2FA for on-chain transactions could increase the security, or do you think that having a hardware wallet for individuals would be enough?
So hardware wallet already have 2FA in some sense. If you are using a ledger, you have to enter your PIN to do it. And you can set your ledger to such that it requires PIN for every transaction. So there is a 2FA inbuilt there. You can add on additional 2FA to that, but I would say that would increase the theoretical security, but not practical security. There are very, very, very few attack vectors that would be valid on a ledger. that like it will lead to malicious signing. More easy would be to fake a transaction. Like on Ledger, nobody really verifies what they are signing. So a more easier attack vector practical would be to send malicious data to Ledger, and then you just look at Ledger's tiny screen, you see some numbers and you sign, and then you are wrecked. So that's a more practical concern than slapping another 2FA on Ledger. Okay, thanks everyone. Polygon fans. We don't have much swag here, but the seats look purple. If you want to grab one, feel free.